Hi ladies and gentlemen, this is Trisha with Insectopia, and I know it's been a while since we've chatted or live streamed together. Let me double check and just make sure that everyone is receiving. Very good, look at that. We're all here. Alright, so I have a variety of different insects that didn't have pins, it didn't have labels before, so I wasn't able to sort them into my collection. So now everybody who didn't have labels finally does. So we're going to be able to sort these guys by family into the rest of the collection. But we're also going to be looking at a variety of characteristics. I do have the microscope camera all hooked up and ready so that when we are looking at different insects and different characteristics, I can throw them under the microscope so that you guys can see and check it out. Let me get my secondary computer open. Now you'll notice that over to the left-hand side of your screen, family and count. That's just so that I can keep track and you can keep track of all of the variety of insects that during this session. So as we're going through, I'll go in and say, hey, we saw a type of grasshopper, right? So we're gonna go Orthoptera, and then the short-horned grasshoppers are in the family Acrididae. And then we would do a count. And so that way, you guys will be able to kind of follow along with me. And we'll talk about all of the variety in the insects. Cool. All right. If you have any questions, always go ahead and shoot them into the comments of the live stream that you're watching. I should be able to stay on top of all of the comments coming in. I am a little short on the Facebook one right now. I'm trying to find the Facebook live stream. I know that. I'm live on Facebook. Doop, 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 doop. Facebook is being silly. I want to make sure we're all set up before. Oh, hey, that's why. All right, now I think we're all set. And for those of you on Facebook who are just now joining me, I just wanted to let you know that we are going to be sorting my insects down into family today. So in previous live streams, we've been able to sort them down to order, and we did spend time talking about how to pin, how to organize your collection, how to type all the labels up. We did a little bit of label writing together. And now we're going to be sorting them down into family. All right. So I just want to make sure that I can see the live stream. The Facebook live stream is a little bit more difficult than all the other ones. Silly Facebook. There we are. Well, I can see the stream, but I can't get into the stream manager. Odd, odd, odd. All right, well, I'll be able to see comments if you drop a comment. And that is exactly what we need. Alrighty, so this is the collection that we are going to be starting with. Alright, so these guys are not sorted out to order yet, so we're gonna also have to do that. I figured we would start by So there's a variety of different insects in this box, right? And so we're going to have to pick a place to start. And I guess because our example, we used Orthoptera acrididae, I guess we could start there. And we can start by pulling all the short-horned grasshoppers. So Orthoptera is that order for grasshoppers, crickets, and katydids. So anything that we're going to see that has that large jumping leg at the base and they have leathery front wings, these guys, anything that you would notice as like a cricket or a grasshopper, we're going to be pulling these guys out as orthopterans. And then we'll go ahead and we'll count the short-horned guys. So you can go ahead and pull them out. I have separate unit trays to make this a little bit easier for myself and so that you guys can see them when they're all together. All right. Sometimes the grasshoppers will spin on their pins. So if you notice that I have a couple extra pins around a handful of their bodies, it's just because I don't want any of my specimens to spin and damage each other. Alright, so pulling. Now these grasshoppers are from a variety of locations around the country. Let's see. We have right now these are just from Arizona and Texas. These two up here are from Arizona. And if you've been, I wonder if I do it this way, it'll stay focused. All right, these guys up here, if you've been following my Facebook Guess That Bug, that's the guy that I took pictures of under the microscope and had you guys identify down to species or guess down to species. It's that one on the left. Now, pulling all. Okay. Alrighty. Throat spurs. Okay, so let's talk. Alright, so we've got all of the grasshoppers out of this tray. And, well, all of the orthopterans, right? The grasshoppers, crickets, and katydids. Very good. We got them all out of that tray. And in that tray, we had 3 different families of orthopterans. And we're going to be looking at them. We're going to be looking at them under a microscope. So these guys up here, these 1, 2, 3, 4, those are going to be what we call short-horned grasshoppers. And so if we look at them, they're naturally are going to have kind of these shorter antennae in comparison to their body, right? So their antennae are probably only going to be about 1/3 the length of their body. All right, I'm going to deactivate myself so that we can turn on this microscope. Okay, so the other thing that we want to see with the short-horned grasshoppers is the difference in between them and lubber grasshoppers. There's a characteristic that you can only really see if you kind of flip them over. And I'm trying to pick a grasshopper that'll be easy to do that with. Let's go with this guy. Alrighty. I'm going to get a little bit. Sometimes I will use a little bit of museum putty to help with the pin. This is because I'm going to be putting the pin upside down, and that's obviously not the sharpest side. So, there we go. Alright, now we are looking at as long as he doesn't move too much around, we're looking at the bottom of this grasshopper. Alright, and so if you look right, let's see, I can put my mouse on this. I can put my cursor on it. Can you see the cursor? Alright, well I hope you guys can see my cursor. Yes, very good. Alright, if you look here, this is going to be the grasshopper's head. We've got the 2 antennae. We have the eyes up here. This is actually its front lip. But what we're looking at as the characteristic for short-horned grasshoppers is right here. This is what we call a throat spur. Alright, so if we look at it from underneath, it essentially just looks like, it looks like a spine on the bottom, on the underside of the neck. All right. In the microscope, it looks like just this kind of this white dot, but I promise you, that is a very, what looks like a sharp spine. So let's see, I guess we can try and zoom in on it. Alrighty, so if you're looking right about here, that's the very, very tip of the throat spine, or the throat spur. Alright, and that's going to be the characteristic for all shorthorn grasshoppers. They're all going to have this throat spur that helps you identify them. Alright, so I know from personal experience, from checking these guys out, that those top four, that the grasshoppers I showed you before did have throat spurs. Now these guys, I'm going to share this with you before I turn my microscope off. Alright. Now this is the underside, or the ventral side, of one of the other grasshoppers that we had on the tray. This is not going to be in the same family as those short-horned grasshoppers. Alright. Now, somebody probably could have told you that just by the size difference, right? You say, wow, that definitely might be something different, right? Well, these guys are lubber grasshoppers. And lubber grasshoppers don't have throat spurs. Alright, so if you look at the underside of this body, you've got, this is still the front lip, you've got the mandibles down here to help chew, the bottom lip. Alright, and then right here, in between the front legs, if this was a short-horned grasshopper, there would be that spur, right? There would be that spine right here between its legs. And because it doesn't have it, we know that that's not going to be in the same family. Alright, and so we know that this guy, who is, let's see, ooh, no. Alright, so I'm going to turn off this microscope so that you can see me for a minute. Alright, so you know that this grasshopper right here, this is going to be that lubber grasshopper. He's huge in comparison to all the other ones. And this is that grasshopper that doesn't have the throat spur. So he's going to be in a family all to himself. Now, I made a boo-boo, and I knocked his antenna off when I was showing him to you. So, don't mind me while I glue him back together really quickly before moving on. Here. You can watch. Let's see. Alrighty, so this is my lubber grasshopper. Unfortunately, when I was putting him into this tray, his right antenna broke off, and that makes me sad because he's such a beautiful specimen. Alright, so I have a little bit of tacky glue on me. A lot of times I use Elmer's glue, but and make it tacky. Tacky glue's already tacky. Okay, so I'm just gonna take, it's just a little bit of glue on the end of the pin, and I'm just gonna kind of squish it onto the end of that antenna, and I want to try and make sure there's enough that it's going to grab the antenna. Okay, now, see, because the tacky glue is tacky, it has the ability to kind of hold the antenna in place on the pin. So you can actually kind of place it and then roll it. Let's see. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of pins and make a little frame for our antenna so that it'll stand up and stay where I want it to for when it's drying. And I'll admit the connection isn't the best connection I've ever made, but the antenna will stay. So we're going to have to leave him like this for a little bit so that that glue dries, but then his antenna will be nice and safe. And that's one of the reasons why I definitely prefer having tucked insects rather than spread insects, right? Because if all of the antennae are tucked and the legs are tucked, you've got a significantly less chance of knocking those antennae or knocking the legs off. All right, so I'm actually going to see if I can kind of slide my other lubber grasshopper next to him. Yeah. So now at least the lubbers are together. So both of these lubber grasshoppers were actually collected in Texas this summer, and I saw them as they were mating on the road, guys. I slowed down and I stopped and I picked them right up off of the road. I didn't know what I was stopping for. I just knew it was large and it definitely looked like an insect. I didn't expect to find 2 insects. That's kind of fun. Alright, and so you'll see I put a couple of pins to either side of their bodies just to make sure that they don't spin on me. Alright, so I'm going to go over into our document and throw Alright, so 2 Romeliidae, these guys are the lubber grasshoppers. And then the acridids are these short-horned grasshoppers that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of so far. So I'm going to go ahead and write acrididae 4. Alrighty. And then we have a cricket of sorts. Crickets are not my favorite insect to identify down to family because there are a handful of families, and so I'm not going to quote on this one. We're gonna put this one in the to be keyed out pile. Let's call them unknown. And then, and in science, it's all right to have a couple of unknowns, right? Things that you have to figure out, things that you have to work on, things you have to identify. Perfect. Alright, so those are going to be the acridids in that drawer, but we can probably look for others so that they're all together. No more in this one. Oh. Katie did. Alright, so this is the, these are, stay. Alright, so this is my orthopteran drawer from before. These are the ones that we kind of identified and sorted into order before. So we're going to go through here and sort these guys down into family. It looks like we have a handful of them. Oh, hey, here's one more. And we had already sorted these guys to acrididae. So all of these grasshoppers are actually in the same family in that acridid. They're all short-horned grasshoppers. They're all going to have that throat spur that we just saw a minute ago on the microscope, that long spine on their neck. That's going to be a key characteristic for those guys. So if you see that on a grasshopper, you know what it is. All right. So what we can do is go through here and finish sorting these guys out to family, or at least I'm gonna pull out at least the short-horned grasshoppers. Now you'll notice as I'm as we're pulling and counting all of these grasshoppers, that Acrididae, or the short-horned grasshoppers, are going to be the largest family. They're probably the largest orthopteran family, but they're definitely the largest family in my collection. Alright, I'll give you guys the view of the pin of the buggies as I'm doop 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 doop. Don't put the buggies over top of each other. Ran out of space. Okay. So some of these older unit trays have styrofoam that isn't always connected to the base very well. And so what you just saw is when I tried to take a pin out of the styrofoam, it actually pulled the styrofoam up with it. And so that is a danger to the specimens, because you can see as the styrofoam moves, it's possible for the insects to shift. So I want to make sure that the styrofoam is pressed all the way down before moving forward. And that it doesn't do that again. Need to take them off and glue the styrofoam in. Come on. All right. No more space. Squishy. This is why making sure your specimens are as tight as possible is so important. It's because when you're sorting them into these unit trays, you want to make sure you want to be able to fit as many specimens as you can into the space that you have. A lot of times, space is the limiting factor in collections. And I've seen collections donated that the museum just doesn't have the space for it. So you want to make sure that your collection's nice and tight. And I'm trying to be able to fit one more grasshopper in here. Unfortunately, that grasshopper is a spread grasshopper, so the grasshopper I'm trying to fit in here is going to take up significantly more space than any of these other grasshoppers, so I don't think it's going to happen. I want it to happen. I'm just going to have one that doesn't fit. Or we can upgrade into a larger, the other option is upgrading into a larger unit tray. Every time you move a specimen, you have the chance of injuring that specimen, and it's really, really important to keep them, to be nice to them. Or else you end up with legs on the ground. Grasshoppers are one of those insects that are kind of difficult to keep together. Their legs fall off even when they're alive. I don't know if you guys have ever gone and played with grasshoppers much, or if you were ever holding a grasshopper, but if you hold them by their back legs semi-regularly, they will just drop their leg off. They're just like, nope, I don't need this anymore. I'm just going to drop it off. And it's crazy because they use those legs to jump, so you would think that they would be vital to survival, but they frequently drop their legs to survive. Alright. So we threw a little bit of glue on that guy. Sad day. So this is the acritid, or the shorthorn grasshopper, that we are unable to fit into the drawer. But that'll be fine. I'll just go get another unit tray. Alright, we're back. Got a blank one. Alright, so we're going to be starting a new unit tray, and that means we have all of the acridids in one place. Alright, all of the shorthorn grasshoppers. So we're going to be able to count these guys. Let's see, I'll give you guys a little bit of a view of diversity. And there's a couple of them that I did spread their wings just so that you can see what color their hind wings are, and the fact that grasshoppers, crickets, katydids, they do have wings. In fact, they have 4 wings and the ability to fly. Some people don't realize that. And you'll notice these slight variations in their body shape and their body colors and the striping on their legs. And those are all indications of different species. I went to one rest area and found something like 10 species of grasshoppers in a rest stop. And that was pretty awesome. I was pretty excited. All right, so we're going to count these really fast, and then I'll be able to put a number up there. Let's see. And this guy's spinning. And when we have grasshoppers spinning, we can just put a pin or 2, one on either side, make sure that they stop. No spinning for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I counted 33. I'm going to count one more time. All right, so we have 33 acridids. Romeliids, those were the Romeliids were the lubber grasshoppers. Those were the grasshoppers that didn't have a throat spur. Oh, hey! And this is why we're sorting them all in, is because I have insects everywhere. There's another tray of orthopterans, guys. So I have a variety of different collections that we're kind of smashing together right now. I have my old Ent 404 collection. That was my first collection at Michigan State. I have my graduate level collection from like an 800 level class. And I have the insects that I just collected this summer. And they were all collected and sorted separately. So that's why we are sorting them and putting them together. This is a lubber grasshopper, but it's going to go in. This guy right here, he's a lubber grasshopper, but he's just going to join this box because it's the box of guys who don't fit. Not yet, anyway. Alright, so we do have another short-horned grasshopper, and this guy, because his wings are tucked, is actually going to fit. Do-do-do-do. He's definitely crooked, but let's see. He'll be fine. He counts. He's in. Alright, so that gives us 34. And 3 lubber grasshoppers. And we're going to look at the crickets and katydids. Alright, so we're going to put these guys aside. We're going to pull out the rest of our friends here. Now that we've gotten the larger family, the acridids, out of the way, we're able to see the rest of our guys that, are slightly different than all of our other friends. Now, let's see. Up here in the front, these are 2 species of katydids. Now, we can see that their antennae are incredibly, incredibly long. Generally, more than half the length of their body is the rule. So these guys up here are katydids. Now, this one I'm not so sure about. He's our unknown. Let's get them in the right order. Let's see. So this guy is a Jerusalem cricket. Alright, so this guy right here is a species of Jerusalem cricket. Alright, he was collected in Kane County, Utah. Cool. Oh, Carmel Junction. Oh, this was a really fun night to collect. Carmel Junction in Utah is one of the better places that I've been collecting insects. Alright, and so he came. I was actually out filling the gas. I was filling the gas at the gas station, and this guy came kind of running out, and I was able to collect them and check them out. All right. Let's see. So this one's going to be my Jerusalem cricket. Jerusalem crickets are in the family Stenopelmatidae, which is, long in Latin or Greek. Now, I believe that these are also Jerusalem crickets. Alright, so there is a little bit of variation in these guys, but you'll notice that they have these spines on their front and their hind legs. For me, this is kind of a gestalt. That's what one of my entomology professors used to say. When you look at something and your just gut kind of knows what it is, and it's hard to kind of tell a description as to what exactly you're looking at. That's when I see these guys. I know they're Jerusalem crickets, but I'm going to have to look up to tell you guys what the actual characteristics are. You can see that they're stouter in body, that they've got these awesome spines all over their legs. They have heads that look almost humanoid. let's check that out. So, yeah, so you can see that they've got these very, very round heads that almost look humanoid, and they have the ability to kind of scream or make a loud... And so they have all different types of common names, men of the earth, and things like that. You can find these, you can find Jerusalem crickets hanging out underneath rocks, a lot of times on hills or on mountains. Check him out. Yeah, so that's a Jerusalem cricket. His head is pretty creepy. I love it. All right, and him and his friend were actually collected on Wing Mountain this year, him and his friend were collected on Wing Mountain, which was an experience in and of itself, being on that mountain, because it was so quiet after the moon, after the sunset and before the moon rose. The night got very dark and very quiet, and then about, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes later, when the moon rose, everything was much more like welcoming. All right, we're going to look at, all right, so we've got the stenopomatids. There's 3 of them. Those are our Jerusalem crickets. Alrighty, and then let's see. We have dwarf grasshoppers. Now, okay, dwarf grasshoppers are adorable. Those are little itty bitty tiny baby grasshoppers, except they're not babies. They are full grown adult grasshoppers that are this big. This big. They're so cute. All right, so if we let's take this one. This one's really pretty. This one has a line across its pronotum, so it has a little bit of this, like, pretty color variation. Alrighty. So this is a grasshopper. You can see it has all the characteristics of a grasshopper, just incredibly small. You can see, let's see, if we put it on a little bit of an angle, that'll help you see a little bit, and you'll be able to see those hind legs right here. That's a big jumping leg to help this grasshopper jump around. He's got 6 full legs. He has this really pretty stripe across this is his pronotum, or it's kind of like a shield on his back. And normally, grasshoppers, this shield, it stops right before the wings start. So, let's see. Let's get you an example grasshopper. This one seems like a good example grasshopper. Alright, our example grasshopper is significantly larger, but you'll be able to see. Now, on this grasshopper, you can see right here, this plate that kind of looks like a triangle, that's the pronotum. That's what's going to kind of guard its back. In cockroaches, this extends forward and guards its head. But it just kind of sits there. You can see it ends right here, and this is where the wings start. Now, in dwarf grasshoppers, they're so tiny and they're so fragile that pronotum extends all the way back and protects the entire length of the wings. All right, so you can see that this shield that normally just guards his back guards the entire wing. Now we can look at, let's take these guys off in the order they were put on. Don't break things. Okay. All right. And so we can also look at another dwarf grasshopper. Let's see. This one's kind of a big, tankier dwarf. All right, so you can see that this dwarf grasshopper is a little bit more tanky, but it still has these hind legs that it uses to jump. It has chewing mouth parts. It has a head up here, and this pronotum, you can see this line that goes all the way down its back, protects the entire length of the wings. And that is how you identify a dwarf grasshopper in comparison to a short-horned grasshopper. You can check it out by checking out the pronotum. So let's see. We can actually go ahead. We can go ahead and count our dwarf grasshoppers from all around the world. Not around the world, around the United States. I haven't been collecting in any other country. All right, so let's see. I want to make sure we're all looking at... You guys, we're looking at a blank slate. All right. Those are our 5 dwarf grasshoppers. All right. And dwarf grasshoppers are in the family Tetrygonidae. And not 47. 5. You know, fingers. All right, so we've got the tetrygonids, we've got that. Oh, okay, cool. What about mole crickets? Now, mole crickets have a really unique, front legs. They have really unique front legs. Are they, I think it might be the tarsal. Anyway, we're going to check this out. Now, that right there is the mole cricket that we're going to be looking at under the microscope. He's not focusing very well. Tell him to focus better. There we go. So that's the mole cricket that we're going to be looking at under the microscope. And mole crickets are really interesting because they actually have a modified front leg. So praying mantids have a leg that they can use to grab onto prey. Grasshoppers have that jumping leg that we were looking at. Now, mole crickets have both kind of, it looks like almost an adapted jumping leg. They don't really jump, but they do have a digging leg. All right, so if you can, here we go. Check that out. So up here near the front of the head, there's a couple of characteristics that we can see that we even saw on grasshoppers. So this right here, this is the pronotum. That's the shield that's guarding its back, and it does in this family, it stops before the wings. All right, and you look, this is its first pair of legs, and you can see all of these what look like these big spines on the front legs. And these big spines are not for attacking prey, right? These are for digging. So they're kind of used like really big scoopy shovels. And mole crickets are specialists in digging around in the mud. Yeah, so that's what their digging leg is going to look like. You can see that it has these spines here on the edges that help it dig, but also you can see up here in the front, those are all part of the system, right? All part of the system to help them dig around. And we can even look at the other side. They should be the same on both sides, but they're kind of fun to look at. There are things I wonder. So you can see that the tips of the femoral spines or tibial spines are sclerotized, so they're hard and shiny, and that makes them harder, and it helps them. And that makes them harder, and it helps them dig around in the soil. Tibial spines are sclerotized, so they're hard and shiny. Oh no. Okay. Ha, you guys might have heard me echo a little bit. That's fine. Alright, so that's our mole cricket. And mole crickets are going to be found in the family Grillotelpidae. So we're going to go ahead and type that in. Grillo. It's been a minute since I've written this one, so I had to look it up. I will admit that. When I was taking class, spelling was required, and so sometimes, yeah. Oh, okay, we know this one. All right, we know this one. There's going to be a handful of these crickets that I'm going to have to key out to family to identify, and you guys will be right here with me when I'm doing it. So, I believe a couple of these are small species of katydids. But I don't want to tell you wrong. So we're going to have to ID them out. Oh, actually, I know this one is. Okay. Alrighty. So, we have this guy right here. He's a little field cricket. Crickets are in the family Grillidae. He, I think, is the only field cricket that I've collected. So me, myself, and I need to either collect more or I guess pay more attention, because I have seen so many. You know, it's like those insects that you see all the time that you don't collect because you just assume that you have them until you sort your collection. And you're like, oh wait. Never actually collected one. I want to make sure I'm spelling Grillidae right. Yeah. Alrighty. And then the final one would be our tree cricket. Tree crickets are also in the family Grillidae. So they're just probably in a different subfamily. And then our camel cricket. Rhiphidophoridae. Okay. Alrighty, so these two guys down here in the bottom, they're orthopterans, right? They have jumping legs, but they also have antennae that reach longer than their body length. Man, why can't I remember? I can't remember what the defining characteristic is for a cricket versus a katydid. I'm going to have to look it up. It's just part of the Gestalt. Yeah. It's just part of, like, looking and knowing. All right. And then the last one here. This one, actually, some of you might have seen in your basements. This is a camel cricket. All right. Some people call them sprickets, because they believe they look kind of like a mixture between a spider and a cricket. You'll notice that this guy did have his antenna glued back together. You can kind of see where he's separated right there. That's fine. And these guys will hang out in people's basements, and that is why so many people kind of know what they are. They can infest a basement, but they aren't really doing much harm outside of scaring people all over the place. Admittedly, I think that they're super cool, and I would love to have a colony of them jumping around. So there's been a couple times where people had them in the basement, and they're like, "Hey, can I grab your camel crickets? I'd like to take a shot at seeing if I can rear them." They're really fun. Okay, so these guys are in, their family name is really long. It's called a Rhaphidophoridae. And those are the camel crickets. Those are the guys that like to hang out in your homes. Alright. And then we're going to go unknown, and we're going to put 3. So down here at the bottom, these guys, they're either a small katydid or large crickets. But I don't remember the key characteristic between them. So we're going to leave them as other, and then we'll look it up, and we'll have to identify it together. Hey! Alrighty. Alright, so we have gotten through... Oh, I gotta get my mole cricket out of the microscope. Alright, so we were able to go through the short-horned grasshoppers, being the acridids. I want to make sure that you guys can see the numbers still. Alright, we went through the acrididae, or the short-horned grasshoppers. The romeliids were these lubber grasshoppers without the throat spur. Stenopelmatidae, those guys are our Jerusalem crickets. And then we have tetragids, or our dwarf grasshoppers. Grillotelpidae, those guys are the... Oh man, you guys are grilling me now. That's the... Yeah. The grillotelpid is the mole cricket. Then we've got the grillids, these guys right here, these 2 crickets. One of them being a field cricket and one of them being a tree cricket. These tree crickets are really loud, and they chirp. And if you look for videos of them chirping on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of them. All right, cool. All right, so I think that we got through the orthopterans, or all of those insects with the jumping legs, the grasshoppers, crickets, and katydids. Now, I think we should go into... What order do you think we should do next? 6:30? Hey guys, let's do the hemipterans. I'm liking the small orders. The beetles feels like a lot to take on right now. Got a huge variety of beetles. So there might be a number of unknowns in that one. But I think we've got the hemipterans down. So let's try to eyeball those ones first. So, hemipterans, for those of you who don't know, are the true bugs. Alright, so if somebody says, ew, it's a bug, most of the time it's not a true bug. Most of the time it's just an insect, right? But a true bug is a type of insect. Alright, just like a butterfly is a type of an insect, or a ladybug is a type of an insect. So true bugs have piercing and sucking mouth parts. And that is the characteristic for the entire order. Alright? So if you know that the insect has piercing and sucking mouth parts, you're that much closer to knowing that you are working with a true bug. Now, Just because their mouth parts pierce and suck doesn't mean that they're all predatory. Some of them pierce and drink plant juice. All right. So it just depends on what insect you're working with as to whether or not it's going to be attacking other insects or it's going to be attacking plants. Let's see. So we're gonna put the orthopterans away. They're all sorted up, and we're gonna pull out any and all of the hemipterans. Now, keep in mind I am sorting a handful of collections, so it might take a minute to grab them all from the variety of locations, but we've got these guys. And lucky for us, haha, these hemipterans are already identified for us, so we'll be able to check them out. Alright, then no hemipterans in this box. This one there are, though. I know it. There they are. Alright. So, you may not know this, but hemipterans, one family of hemipteran is what I spent my time doing my research on. I spent time researching stink bugs. Pentatomids of Michigan, in fact. Because when the brown marmorated stink bug was coming into the United States and it was super invasive and we're trying to figure out ways to get rid of it, my lab was working on researching a wasp that we could introduce to the United States that would help take down the populations of the stink bugs. And that's what I worked on for a while. And then, crazy thing happened. The wasp ended up here in the United States anyway, without us releasing it. Okay, let's see. This one. And this one. And those. It's a lot of... We're going to be doing beetles for a while when we get to beetles, guys. I think that we've collected all of the hemipterans. There are 4 unit trays of them. So we have, to give you a rough start, we've got a handful of cicadas. It looks like some assassin bugs. More cicadas. I enjoy collecting cicadas, so I have a bunch of them. Stink bugs, a variety of stink bugs, guys. But I was not able, for my time during my research, I collected a lot of stink bugs. I was not allowed to keep any of the stink bugs that I collected. So I don't have specimens from that time because all of those specimens were owned by the lab. Alright. And then this tray. Alright. And so you'll notice that a handful, if I put this sideways, a handful of these specimens have 2 labels on them. And if they have 2 labels on them, that means I've already spent time identifying them, right? So the first label is the locality label. That's the label that says who collected it, where they collected it, and when they collected it. And then the second label underneath, that's going to be the identification label. So that says what it is and who identified it, and sometimes when they identified it. Although, back in the day, I didn't put the year on those. I always put the year on it nowadays. But I guess this was back when I was doing a collection for classes, and they didn't require a date on the identification labels. Cool. Alright. So, cicadas. Now, I think personally that cicadas are pretty easily identified, in comparison to other true bugs. Alright. So I would say cicadas. All right, so there's a variety of cicadas from all over the country. Actually, this one down here, this cicada down here is my favorite because I collected it in Mesquite, Nevada at a rest area, and it was like after 10 at night and still over 100 degrees, and the cicadas were still chirping, and they were this beautiful red-yellow color. And then there were cicada killers hanging out around the same tree. And the cicada killers were the same colors as the cicadas. They kind of had this, the cicada killers were also this burnt red and beautiful yellow color that's kind of unique. And so I thought that was really cool that they were both kind of blending into the desert and they were kind of blending into each other. Now, if you look at these guys that are black, those are the dog day cicadas. So those are the cicadas that come out every other year. Those aren't the 17-year cicadas. Although I have collected a number of those, we're not looking at any of those pinned specimens today. Oh, hey, we've got one more. Tray. One more tray. But that's not a... Is this one? I don't think that's an abid. Okay. One more cicada. It's funny, I looked over and there was a cicada even bigger. Love it. So that's a really large, that's a pretty cool variety of cicadas. Sorry, I just found the cicada killer that matches our cicada. You want to see it? I think you do. Look at that. I think they are absolutely gorgeous. So that top one is the cicada and the bottom one is the cicada killer. And the cicada killer is predatory and parasitic on cicadas. So they'll sting the cicada, they'll paralyze them, and then they'll drag them underground and they bury them. And they'll lay an egg on the cicada. And so the cicada is paralyzed. It's still alive. It just can't move. It gets an egg laid on it. And then the baby wasp squirrels in and starts eating the cicada alive. All right? That's the life cycle on these guys. So that cicada killer those cicada killers were flying around the tree and actively trying to find a place to sting and paralyze the cicadas to try and attack them and eat them and start the next generation. And I just love that they very much match colorations, too. All right. We can put him back with the rest of his friends. Oh, don't touch the bugs, Trisha. All right, so those are going to be our cicadas. We can put... Oh, this is fun. So... all of the other, you'll notice that a lot of those family names, they're long in Latin and seem that they might be kind of difficult to remember and, you know, not common. But cicadas, on the other hand, have a very, very memorable Latin name. Now I just need to remember how exactly to spell it. I think it's cicada D. Yeah. Alrighty, so we have 6 cicadas, and their family name is cicada D. Alright, so those guys are fun and easily remembered. Now, we're going to continue sorting these friends. Where did the giant water bug go? Hey. There he is. We accidentally missed one. So, this guy and that guy. These, hello, welcome home.
Thank you. Are you streaming?
Yep. These guys are giant water bugs. All right, let's see. I'll throw them under the microscope so that you can see them a little easier. Very good. So this large one on the left of the screen that looks kind of muddy, that's an abetus, or a giant water bug from Arizona. Abetus are really cool because when the ladies are laying their eggs, they lay their eggs on the backs of the boys. All right. So the ladies have to, you know, lay the eggs, but then the males are actually the ones that care for the eggs and swim around and make sure that the eggs stay protected and make sure that, and make sure that the water is always flowing over the eggs, because if the eggs stay stagnant, they can die. So they need to have running water over them, which means the dad always has to kind of stay swimming around and making sure that he's protecting those eggs and stuff. All right. And if we wanted to look at them under the microscope, I wanted to show you something kind of cool. But it might take a minute to see if I can get this. Cool. All right, so what we are looking at, let's see. Sorry guys, give me a minute. I gotta clean my stuff up a little bit. There we go. All right, so what we're looking at is the head of that giant water bug. All right, and we're looking at it from the bottom. Now, giant water bugs are also called toe biters because in the wild, they tend to be, well, kind of aggressive. They're predatory. They like to eat things like small fish and tadpoles and large insects. I actually have a short video of a giant water bug drinking an eyeball out of a fish. So that's crazy. But if you notice, you can actually see on this head. So we've got right here, this is an eye. And then down here we have an eye. And this is what we call the beak, or the mouth part of our giant water bug. And this beak is kind of like a sheath. It's kind of like an IV, maybe, because it has this outer piece that's very, very hard, and it can kind of stab you with it, kind of like a thumbtack. It's very, very sharp, all right? And then on the inside right here, you'll almost see what looks like a tube. There we go. Yeah, right about here, you'll see this tube that's kind of entering this sheath. And that is actually its mouth part. That's the straw that it uses to inject venom. All right. So it'll actually inject venom with that straw, and it'll drink its prey through this. All right. Now, giant water bugs are just one insect that has this piercing and sucking mouth part where they've got a sheath and a straw inside of the sheath. But they are venomous, right? So their bite hurts a lot in comparison to some of the other insects out there. All right. So those guys are going to be our giant water bugs. We did have 2 of them. We're separating those guys out. Alright, so I can go ahead and say these 2 up here, these guys are going to be my giant water bugs. For identifying characteristics, you're going to be looking at mostly body shape and body size. True bugs have that piercing and sucking mouth part. Elastomatomy. Giant water bugs times 2. Awesome. And because I kind of love stink bugs, I think that we should do some pentatomids, some stink bugs. So let's go ahead and just pull out all of the stink bugs, and we're going to put them in this tray, I think. Now, stink bugs are also considered shield bugs by some. And these are Cormolina. Okay. Alrighty, so these guys are our friendly stink bugs. Alright, so if we're looking at these guys, there's a variety of colors and sizes. But the shape tends to stay very similar. These are called pentatomidae for 5 because they kind of look like they have 5 sides, or they look kind of like little shields, right, in their body shape. Now, all of the stink bugs that we are looking at here, these are all phytophagous, or they eat plants. There are predatory stink bugs, though. There are a handful of genera / subfamilies that will attack other insects. This guy right here, that's kind of like long and thin, that's going to be a rice. That's going to be a rice stink bug. You find those more frequently in high, where there's lots and lots of water, right? Where you would have almost like rice paddies. You find those in boggy areas. Alrighty. If we were looking at, let's see, this guy's got a good one. We're going to turn the label sideways. Alright, so if we're looking at the underside of a stink bug, this is going to be that long piercing and sucking mouth part that we were just talking about. Alright, so if we look at it from underneath, you can see that this is kind of the straw that it has going all the way through the mouth part. You can see the sheath right here that helps pierce the plant. And this stink bug would be drinking plant juices. So this piercing and sucking mouth part doesn't need to be super sharp. It doesn't need to be aggressive. It doesn't need to be predatory. It just needs to be able to pierce a plant, to pierce a leaf. So it's just sharp enough to do that. It's not sharp enough to hurt anybody. All right. Some identifying characteristics on stink bugs while looking at him. Sometimes when we're looking at stink bugs, we need to look at the front of the head. This is called the jugum and the tyla. So a lot of times they're saying, do they make a straight line across? Is that an M shape? Is one longer than the other? We have a lot of characteristics here that we look at keys when we're trying to identify them. And then the other thing that we look at a lot when we're trying to identify stink bugs is the margin or the shoulder of the stink bug. Let's see. Don't mind the museum putty at the base. All right, so if you're looking at this stink bug, you sometimes we look at the margin of this pronotum, right? So this is the pronotum or the shield that guards its back. We saw those on the orthopterans or the grasshoppers. This his shoulders come out to these very, very acute points, which are characteristic, I believe, for this genre of stink bugs that are rice feeders. They're this very, very slim body shape, and they have these spines that point forward. Some stink bugs have spines that point sideways. Some stink bugs have really, really jagged margins on the edge here. This one looks pretty smooth. I wonder if we zoomed in, if it was as smooth as it looks. Yeah, he's got a pretty smooth margin. He's got a lot of punctations, or a lot of little spots on his exoskeleton. Little indentations. Cute. Alright, so those are stink bugs. I kind of love stink bugs. So I figured I might as well show you them close up and personal. Alright. Now, we're going to go ahead and put pentatomid on our list. And there were 9 individuals. Okay. Oh no, there were 10. I missed one. I feel like that's the rule in insects. You can spend all of your time trying to find, like if you're looking for insects, you can find every single one. And then look back, and there is always one more. Alright? That's the rule with insects. You think you've counted them all, and add 1 or 2. Because there's always one more. Alright, so I have hemipterans. So when we were talking about orthopterans, let's see, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We had 7 different families in Orthoptera. We had 7 different groups of insects that we could individualize and separate out. Now, hemipterans are a little different. So the true bugs, because there's a huge variety. There's a large variety of insects in this family. Okay? Or not in the family, in the order. There's a huge number of families in this order. And so, let's see. All right. Where do we want to go next? I think I identified this one. I have to find that identification. How many of you have seen a water scorpion? It looks almost like a stick. Alright, so this is a water scorpion. Alright, it looks almost like a walking stick. It's kind of funny looking. It's long and it has very, very thin legs. But if we look closely at a walking stick's mouth parts, they're going to have chewing mouth parts. Whereas this insect has piercing and sucking mouth parts. All right, so if we look up at the head, you can see the very two distinct eyes, the head, and then that pointy thing up in the front of its mouth, up in the front of its head. That's its mouth part. It has a long, stabby mouth part. And what's cool is you can also kind of see the legs in this picture. So this long piece right here is its front leg, and it comes down and it swirls back this way. And you can see that is what we call a raptorial front leg, or a front leg that helps it grab and hold on to its prey. Kind of like a praying mantis. A praying mantis will have this type of grasping front leg. Now, let's see. This guy up here, he's got the piercing and sucking mouth part and the grabbing legs. Perfect. So, water scorpion. He likes to spend his time hanging upside down in the water channel, and he will wait for food to swim by so that he can grab onto it, pierce it, inject it with venom, and then drink it. Now, I mentioned that he hangs upside down in the water. And that's because you see this long, crazy thing that looks like a tail? Let's see. It's so long that it's hard to find the end of it. There it is. So, this long, crazy thing that looks kind of like a tail, this is not a, well, it's not really a tail. This is what the water scorpion is going to be using to breathe. It's kind of like a snorkel, all right? So when my water scorpion hangs upside down in the water, the end of its tail just barely sticks over the water tension, and there's a little hole at the end of this that's called a spiracle, and that's what helps it breathe. It can transport oxygen through its body using this tube. All right, and if we look at that in real life, or if we look at that in person, that's its tail. It's very, very long, all right, almost the length of its body. And so that's going to be some defining characteristics for our water scorpion. There's two different genera of water scorpions. There's one that's kind of thin that looks like a stick, like this guy. This guy looks almost like a walking stick that lives underwater. Come on, focus. Focus. They don't like my water scorpion. But then the other species of water scorpion has kind of a wider body. I have not collected that one yet. I've actually not seen that one in person yet. So, to be seen. Now, water scorpions are in the family Nepidae. Alrighty, so, I think we have a lot to go here, but we've been going for a little bit of time, and I think that we can continue this project again tomorrow, and that would be just fine. So, I'm going to take a little bit of time to put this stuff away, but I just wanted to say for everybody out there who is watching or will watch in the future, thanks for hanging out with me. I super appreciate it. I hope that you guys enjoy some of the content, learn a little bit about the insects we're looking at, enjoy looking through a microscope with me. I think that's kind of a cool part of this whole process. And kind of, you know, if you have a collection, this also might help you. All right, so I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your nights, and I will see you again shortly. I'm going to make this a scheduled thing. It's going to be great. All right, talk to you later. Bye.